Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. Welcome to MFSN, the Hub's fantasy football strategy show every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner, and I'm here as always, but this time only with Ross the Boss.
Hey, everybody, I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk fantasy football week 9. I talk trades, unbelievable trades happening this week. It was like baseball season with all the trades. I was shocked. We could talk about that. We could talk about your league. We could talk about your team. We could talk about your dynasty team. We could talk about what you should do for the rest of the season. We got a lot to talk about, but before we start, Cleveland, you're Cleveland Browns. You're still a Brown. You still live in Cleveland, so I can still consider you a Browns fan.
Sure.
They still beat my Joe freaking Burrow team.
Listen, I'm going to tell you the experience of being a Browns fan. We were up, I think it was 25-0. And all I could think was, how are we going to lose this? That's all I could think the entire time. I mean, you can't. This was the easiest win I've seen the Browns have in I don't even know how it happened. It's crazy.
Well, it's 4 in a row against Cincinnati. You guys obviously have the Bengals number. Too bad you can't play that like every week. But you know what? When Watson comes back in a couple weeks, you guys are going to be you guys have the best running back in the league, hands down, I think, in Chubb. And
Chubb is amazing. Chubb's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Bad.
I mean, seriously, Chubb's going to be a Hall of Famer. I watch him run. I'm not saying he's Jim Brown, but he looks like a 3/4 of Jim Brown, which is amazing.
Yeah, I'll take a half of Jim Brown. I mean, you're in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. So, I'm pleased with that, but I will say this, and we need to answer this from a fantasy sports perspective. What are you expecting of Deshaun Watson when he comes back? We're heading into week 9. He comes back week 13. This is probably last call that you can get him for now because people are going to be snatching him.
I don't expect much. It's going to take him a few weeks.
I think he's going to suck. I think he's going to suck.
I mean, remember him during the preseason? He came in. He was horrible.
I mean, he hasn't played for 2 years.
I mean, he hasn't played, and I know. He's in practice. It's not the same. I mean, practicing and playing in a real game when guys want to tear your head off is a whole different thing. So again, if you have him in a dynasty league, great. If you have him in a redraft league, not great. But that's my opinion. So you do what you want with it. You can keep him in your. If you have room on your bench for him, great, do it. But if you want to pick up somebody else, you should waive him.
Well, I also think it depends on your trade deadline because if you think he's going to come around and play well, you pick him up, you see, and then if your trade deadline hasn't passed, maybe you deal your starting quarterback and you've got somebody ready made to come in. But I don't expect him to be good, not right away. No.
Yep. Agree.
All right, now let's jump back to trade deadline. I totally agree with you, Ross. The trade deadline in the NFL this year. Am I wrong, or was this a much more active trade deadline?
Well, I mean, you remember like years ago when the big trade was Champ Bailey was traded from the then Washington Redskins to the Denver Broncos for Clintus Portis, and that was like a big trade thing during the trade deadline. Usually, these NFL trades have been in the past couple years they've been great, but before that it was a snore fest. No one did anything. But this season, it was some great trades that happened. I was excited. I was like listening to the radio. I was on Twitter. I mean, I was excited to hear these trades. I thought it was great.
All right, we're going to get to that in a second, but now we're going to talk fantasy sports trade. We have a question coming in from Ulysses Ventura. He says, accept this trade Najee Harris for Khalil Herbert and Elijah Moore. So I think what you're saying is that you're getting Najee Harris. I just want to be clear on that. Ross, which side of this deal do you like? I'm Najee Harris all the way. I will say. I'll tell you why.
I would say Najee Harris, but again, Warren is getting a lot more handoffs there in Pittsburgh, so Najee's stock is going down as we speak.
His stock is going down, but what I like about this trade is you're not having to give up much for it.
No, that's exactly what you just said is right. So you're not getting much. I would take the trade if I'm getting Najee Harris. Yes, Herbert stock has been going down just because of Montgomery's getting a lot more handoffs, and Elijah Moore has been kind of invisible the last few weeks.
So yeah, I think if you're able to take a chance on Najee Harris picking up his game, I mean, he's been an elite running back before. I understand the Steelers line does not look good. Kenny Pickett doesn't have control of the offense yet, but this guy could have big upside for the rest of the a lot of times people will say, oh, guy like Najee Harris just sucks because he has sucked recently. But if he starts playing well, you're going to look like a genius, and you didn't have to give up much to do it. So I
don't
say
know. And
100%. If you had to
yeah.
give up a lot for him, I'm not buying him for a lot right now. But if you get him that cheap, for sure. Guess who showed up for our show? It's Kasey Scheinvold.
Flat to the bone.
So shout out
Kasey
to
Scheinvold.
Kasey. His mother just underwent a procedure. We are thinking of her. Hope all is well, Kasey. Kasey says, how much do you guys consider matchup/game script when deciding between two players? I have Jalen Hurts and Tua in a 1 QB league. All right, Ross.
That's a great question. I
is.
love that question, Kasey Scheinvold. And yes, game script is so important. So game script tonight, as we know, the Eagles are favored by 14 points. So we're all looking at a blowout by the first half. I think, Brandon Cooks is not playing for Houston, so they don't have their number one receiver. He's sitting out. Tua is playing, I believe Miami's playing Detroit. Is that right? Or who's Miami playing?
Let me pull that up for you. Keep answering.
Miami's
I'll
playing
check.
a defense that isn't that great. I forgot who it is. Maybe
it is Chicago.
Chicago. They played Detroit last week. So
and they're in Chicago.
They're in Chicago. And Chicago's defense is not the 90. It's not the 86 Bears. So yeah, their defense is not that great. So I would probably start Tua just because I'm thinking you'll see a lot in the second half of Miles Sanders. You'll see Miles running the ball like a maniac in the second half, and they're not going to be throwing that much. So game script, yes. In that game script's going to mean a lot, especially when a team's up by 20 points.
I do think you've got to factor it in certain games. Listen, games can get away from you. Look at the Browns-Bengals game. Who would have seen the game script going in that direction? No one. All right, now Just Bob is weighing in on this very question, and he is a Dolphins fan, but he says Philly starters play only half the game, take Tua. So Just Bob and Ross agree. So do I. I think in this case, the game script really does favor Tua versus Jalen Hurts. And just look what Derrick Henry did last week. By the way, let's talk about this. Remember, during our draft, how much I freaked out about not getting Derrick Henry and instead getting DeAndre Swift. I do think I'm being proven right here. DeAndre Swift is injury prone. He hasn't been playing all season. And you look at a guy like Derrick Henry that I could have had. And listen, I got lucky. I was able to make a trade to get Nick Chubb instead. So much the better. But this is why a guy like DeAndre Swift isn't ideal to pick in round 2 because of his injury risk. He's got the talented upside, but I'd rather go with a guy like Derrick Henry. Now, meanwhile, Derrick Henry absolutely destroyed Houston. Ran for 213 yards, was it? 2 touchdowns? Just leveled them. I think the same thing's going to happen in Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts is going to get a lot of those rushing yards, by the way, at the beginning. So I still think Jalen Hurts is a decent play, but he's going to get most of his points early.
Exactly.
All right. Kasey has a follow-up about that. He says Jalen plays tonight against the miserable Houston Texans. They could run. Okay, so he's actually commenting on the game script. I was late on the job on this. He following up on this. He said they could run only and throw the ball very sparingly because they're blowing them out. Would you bench him for Tua? So, Kasey, our answer is yes, we would. And keep in mind, I mean, it's not like I would bench him for Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not going to do that. But Tua's got huge upside himself. And he's playing Chicago, so I like that.
And Tua has probably the best 1-2 punching wide receivers in the whole NFL with Waddle and with Hill. Having those two guys on your team, you're a big advantage against everybody else.
Yeah. Now, listen, when it comes to trades or waiver wire or whatever you're evaluating in fantasy sports, a lot of it depends on what is happening now, and especially in football. We had Deion Jackson. So Just Bob says, grab Deion Jackson if you can. We had Deion Jackson as our cover boy, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago. I'd much rather have him now. And why? Well, we've got Jonathan Taylor not coming back from injury, looks like anytime soon. He just continual questionable tags, but not really. He's on the doubtful side. Not playing this week in all likelihood. And Nyheim Hines just got dealt. And it's not like...
Got dealt to Buffalo.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think of that trade?
I thought it helped Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo's strong point is catching the ball, and that's what Hines does. It's going to help him a lot. Singletary is going to lose some reps, obviously, but then they dumped Moss in Denver. Was it Denver? He went to where did Moss go? To Indianapolis, and so he'll get some handoffs there. But Jonathan Taylor, I don't know if he's playing this week. I don't know if he's practicing. He's 50-50 about playing this week. So Deion Jackson, yes, it's a good pickup. The guy runs hard.
Well,
I
not
watched
only
him
that,
play.
even if Jonathan Taylor plays, I think Deion Jackson is going to get a pretty decent run.
Don't you want to sing the song "Sorry, Miss Jackson" when you see Deion Jackson's name?
It's funny. It does not happen for me, but I totally respect it.
Sorry, Miss Jackson. Are you for real?
You all knew that was coming.
Oh, sorry.
We got a question coming in from DG.
DG.
He says, "Do I trade Deontay Foreman, Zach Ertz, and Deontay Johnson, or it's Dante Foreman, sorry, for Mark Andrews? Deontay and Foreman are on my bench." Okay.
So the most important question is, who are your other running backs? Mark Andrews, we discussed this. There's 2 elite tight ends, Kasey and Andrews. So yes, if you have depth in the running back position, I would do this deal in a second. I don't know who else is on your bench, but it just depends who your other running back is.
I agree. I mean, since he's saying Deontay and Foreman are on his bench, I'm assuming that he's got some decent depth up ahead because Foreman did just score 3 touchdowns. And
his stock's up here. I mean, yeah. I mean, and this week he goes against the Bengals, and he should have a good game this week too. But Hubbard is playing. That's the other running back in Carolina. So he's not going to get all the reps, but he'll get. I'll bet he gets 70%.
I still think he's run away with the job.
I agree. And Deontay Johnson, his stock is way down. So
now DG did add, anyone's opinion is appreciated. So hopefully that includes us.
Yes.
If not, we're not anyone.
There
but DG, hopefully that helps. Listen, if you want to list who you have, we'll weigh in even more. Oh, he did. Here are his running backs: Etienne, Pierce, and Connor.
Okay, so Connor, I don't think he's playing this week. So
I don't think he is, but I still, with this depth, I would probably make that deal, but only because Mark Andrews is that elite. At his
I assume you start 2 running backs. I would want to pick up Mark Andrews, especially for the playoff run. Yes,
that's what I think. Yeah. All right. Antonio Lopez says, "Would you do Kasey for Diggs and Njoku?"
Njoku's hurt, so I don't know when he's coming back. Dan, you live in Cleveland. When is he coming back?
I think it's going to be another 3 weeks.
I do too. Okay, so Kasey for Diggs. That's an interesting proposition.
I think it depends on the roster, don't you think?
I rather have Diggs. That's me. I think Diggs is more valuable. I think he catches more passes. I like Allen. I like Mahomes too. So it's just, I don't know if you have. I'd rather have Diggs.
If you have huge receiver depth, I could potentially see it, but I'd much rather have Diggs. And it looks like the deal would be Diggs and Njoku, which is nice to get Njoku in the throw in.
Yeah, I guess.
But ultimately, it's Diggs for Kasey, and I prefer Diggs. We've got a follow up. DG says wide receivers are Lamb, AJ, and Cup. That's quite a receiving core there, especially with AJ Brown getting so much better and better.
You should press accept and get Andrews.
I agree. Now, DG does say, "Thank you, subscribed." Thank you, DG. Thank you for watching. It is a pleasure. Okay, we've got Just Bob saying that was terrible. This is the trade for Nyheim Hines. Buffalo only uses their backs as receivers. If they rush, Allen does it. So I agree. A lot of people were saying it was a head scratcher of a trade for Buffalo, and I don't see it that way. The way I see it is they got extra depth so that if there's an injury, I mean, this team's running on all cylinders. They're making a Super Bowl run. They might as well bring in a guy who can do the things that their other players can already do. That way, if there's an injury, they don't have to change what they're doing. That's my thought. Now, Just Bob has said, Antonio, keep Diggs, so he agrees with us. We've got Zachary Hugh has joined us. He says, "What's up, guys? Would you trade Swift/Jamal for Olave/JT?"
Jonathan Taylor. Okay, so would I trade? So you're the Swift expert, and Jamal. So basically, Jamal and Swift. That's the handcuff. Just to remind everybody, and for Olave and JT, would I?
I'll let you weigh in first. Go ahead.
I would have to look at JT. I don't have JT in many leagues. Anytime a guy leads the league in rushing, I kind of stay away from him because it's like a hex. I was hexed years ago with Steven Jackson, so I never ever picked a leading rusher after that. So Olave with Dalton, I'm not a huge fan of that mix. I don't know why. I'm not a Dalton fan, and Dan can tell you why.
Even
I
when
would
he's
put,
not playing in some
if I was
nationally
doing
televised game.
this, I would look at the health of JT. I'm worried about that. And I would keep Swift and Jamal unless unless he's ready to roll and his health is 95%. It just depends on JT.
Okay, now I'm gonna make a particular distinction here. It's gonna depend on what your record is. I think if you're like 6-2 or 7-1 right now, and you can get Olave and JT and change your whole team to have a big time run, I would do it. But if you're 3-4, you can't. I just don't. I don't think you can make that. I think Olave JT wins the deal in the long run.
Yep.
But you got to decide if you can do that now or not.
Yeah, and I would read as many articles as I can on Jonathan Taylor's health because I don't think it's that great. I'm worried about it.
Yeah. Now, DG says I go Olave and JT. That's me. By the way, I need to back up to that because here's the question. He says, would you trade Swift and Jamal for Olave and JT? And do you remember there was a child actor named Jonathan Taylor Swift? Isn't that weird? What? You remember this, don't you?
Yeah, from Home Improvement, correct?
Yes, exactly. But we've got Jonathan Taylor traded for Swift. I just had to point it out.
Okay.
Kasey would have appreciated it. Kasey, where are you? Come back. Let's weigh in. Kasey actually had something to say. Kasey said, this is about the Nyheim Hines trade. The trade is really bad for Cook in Buffalo. That's true.
It's funny, Kasey, a quick story. I was going to put Cook on my list to pick up from waivers this week. On my show, I do Tuesdays on MFSN, if you guys ever want to know who to pick up. But I took him off as soon as that trade happened. I mean, that was the worst thing that could ever happen to Cook is to Hines in Buffalo. So, yes, you're 100% right.
All right. Now, DG says, I still believe in JT. So do I. And by the way.
Well, I mean, yes. We had an unbelievable season last year. Yes, we still believe in him.
Remember when I was talking about record, though? Look, Zachary Hughes 8-0.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Then Dan could be right then.
I think you're right. You take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're 8-0 and you have a chance to bring in Jonathan Taylor, unless you're getting news that he really might not come back this year, which I do not believe is what's going on at all, I think you make that deal. Okay, Antonio Lopez says, would you do Swift and Walker? See how many people are trading Swift, Ross. Why? Would you do Swift and Walker for C-Mac and Myers? Are we talking Jacoby Myers? Is that what we're talking about?
Jacoby Myers, receiver for New England. So CMC, Christian McCaffrey, just so everybody knows who that is, had 3 touchdowns last week. He passed for 1, he ran for 1, and he caught 1. Hasn't been done in...
I assume we're talking Kenneth Walker, by the way.
We're talking about Walker, Kenneth Walker III, the running back for Seattle. So I would want CMC on my team. I think Shanahan, the coach of San Francisco, is going to use that guy every way he can. And I'm excited to watch him play now every week in San Francisco. He's going to be unbelievable. So, yes, if you can get CMC, press accept.
And I say no. I actually think Kenneth Walker is going to outperform C-Mac by himself.
Ooh. I'm on the side wager.
I think you don't do that. I mean, unless this is Swift and Walker Texas Ranger for C-Mac, but that I would take. I would take that for sure. Yes, I got him this time.
Or Jimmy Walker from Good Times. You never know.
Yep. Or Kenny Skywalker, the dunk contest.
If I was drafting right now, I was drafting a team right now for the rest of the season, my number 1 pick would be CMC. Dan Ratner, who would be your number 1 pick right now if you were drafting a team?
I'd probably honestly go wide receiver. I don't trust any running back. And if it's super flex, it would be a quarterback.
It's not super flex. I never said that. I said, who would it be? And you said a wide receiver. So let's break down the wide receivers. So would it be Diggs? Would it be Hill? Would it be who would you pick?
I would probably go with Justin Jefferson is probably my choice. It's close. Jamar Chase is in there. Stephon Diggs. It's one of those.
Chase is hurt, so he wouldn't be drafting him first.
No, not right now. I'm just saying.
I'm saying right now. But mine would be Christian McCaffrey. You would take Justin Jefferson. Which
By the way, remember
there's no wrong answer here.
I was saying, Kasey, where are you? Going. He says, I'm here. And then Just Bob appreciated my Jonathan Taylor Swift joke. Thank you, Just Bob. I appreciate it. And then Kasey said, I'm still here, and I appreciate you. Weighing in on the Kenneth Walker C-Mac trade. DG said Walker and then figured out, okay, Kenneth. And he says C-Mac all day. So he's with you, Ross. And I don't blame anybody for that. I totally understand. I just think Kenneth Walker has a good chance to outperform C-Mac anyway. Remember, Elijah Mitchell's coming back, and I think San Francisco's going to be more careful with C-Mac. That's my guess. Okay, XM Tucci. This is Marco Tucci says, should I trade away Damian Pierce, Palmer, A-Rob to receive Olave, Jacoby Myers, Hendy? I assume this is Daryl Henderson. I'm 3-3. I'm 3-5 in PPR. My running backs: Mixon, Kamara, Pierce. My wide receivers: Pittman, Palmer, Dotson, and Demarcus Robinson. This looks like it's a deep league. So let's see. You're trading away Pierce, Palmer, and A-Rob. You're getting Olave. I don't think I like that trade for you.
Yeah, I mean, Palmer, his value is going to go down as soon as Allen comes back or Williams comes back in a couple of weeks. Pierce is a running back on a bad team, which is behind a lot, which means they have to throw the ball a lot. And Olave, Jacoby Myers has really been stepping it up, though.
He has.
And it's Henderson's the running back for the Rams, right?
I believe that's who he's referring to. Yep.
So I mean, any Ram running back, I mean, they're even like down to Ron Rivers now. I mean, the running game in LA is horrible. So stay away from any running back in LA. Just don't have him on your team. Trust me on that. No,
I mean, I do like, if you're 3-5, I like a play where you're trying to shake up your team and get it going, because you got to start winning. But
right, but this isn't the deal.
Pierce
is the best player in this trade, and I think you're better off keeping Pierce. I think he'll have some good numbers.
Okay, follow up from Zachary Hugh. Would the deal be better with CD instead of Olave? This was, the Jonathan Taylor deal. For Olave, was it for Olave and Swift? I think.
Yeah, Olave. Yes, CD Lamb. I like a lot.
I think that's better.
I think it's better. I think Dak is going to be really getting throwing a lot more yards starting this week. He's just warming up, so you'll see Dak throwing the CD Lamb for touchdowns, yardage. CD is going to average like 100 yards a game with a touchdown at least for the next 6-7 weeks. So be ready for CD Lamb.
Okay, so DG says, I like CD better than Olave, but not by much. And I want to echo that. Ugh. I do think it's better, but I think CD's a little overrated these days.
Well, I just got something in my earpiece from our producer. So Michael Thomas is on the IR for at least 4 weeks. So Michael Thomas is not going to be playing in New Orleans for a while.
Isn't that just like playing on broken record? Michael Thomas is on IR.
I mean, how many times has this been said? Michael Thomas is not playing this week. How many times has that been said in this world? Probably a billion. So Michael Thomas is out. Olave's stock goes higher, but again, his quarterback is Andy Dalton. So I'm not a big fan of Dalton, especially this Monday night. He plays on primetime.
Oh, so that's a Ross no-no.
Go to his bank, take out all the money, equity in his house, go to Vegas, bet it all on the team.
Anyone who's watching this show, do not do that. Do not bet.
Bet against Dalton anytime it's prime time. Trust me, everybody.
I would bet $20 maybe. Just not all the equity on your house. Okay, Trey S says, afternoon, gents, full PPR, sit. 1, Boyd, Juju, or Josh Palmer. Thanks and good luck this week.
Okay, so Palmer's playing the worst defense in the league with the Atlanta Falcons.
And he's going to have a big target share right now.
I think Kasey Scheinfeld can be a better defensive back than the DBs they have in Atlanta. They're that bad. Wow. Boyd is playing at home against Carolina, which I do like that matchup for Boyd. I was there when he had a huge game when Joe freaking Burrow, there you go, Case, see it? Had an unbelievable game, 480 yards, looked like a maniac. I would start Boyd, and I probably would start Palmer. What do you think?
I'm with you. I sit Dan? Juju in that one. I think
the only reason I wouldn't start Juju, I know he had a big game a couple weeks ago before their bye, okay? But
he's so boomer bust.
But it's like Kansas City, they love to spread it out. And now
you can't trust it.
I don't trust it. So I do trust Boyd because, Chase is out. And with I don't think Keenan Allen's playing. I don't think Williams is playing. So Palmer becomes like the number one receiver now in Atlanta. So you got to start Palmer.
As Flavor Flav once said, can't trust it. You cannot trust it.
But
I think Boyd and Palmer have the better role. Kasey weighs in. He says, I'm with Dan. I think Walker is a league winner and C-Mac could still get hurt. I'm totally with you on that. By the way, we've got questions rolling in. And I just wanted to say, wake up. We'll see. We're going to talk about this in a couple of weeks and see who was right. But I just want to say, we got a lot of questions rolling in. If you want your question bumped to the top, we do have something called Super Chat. and you can just click on that, and it will bump your question up to the top. It supports our network. We appreciate it. So if you want that bumped up to the top, I'm going to try to get to everyone I can. But if you want to bump it up to the top, go right ahead. All right. Antonio Lopez says, would you do it if I sent Taylor instead? So I need to go back and reference what were we even talking about?
We're talking about Willis.
This was Swift and Walker for C-Mac. So I think now he's saying, would you do it if it was Swift and Taylor for C-Mac? And that I would do for sure. Yes. I don't like giving up Walker in the deal, but I think that's good. Then Antonio Lopez says, would you do it if I did Swift and Taylor for C-Mac and Myers? Yes. I would do that in a heartbeat. Taylor just, we just don't know what we're going to get out of him. And I really think Swift's not going to come back.
Especially what's going on in Indianapolis. They're starting that Brad Effinger. Is that how you say it?
Ellinger. Sam
Ellinger.
Brad Effinger. Total other guy.
I know it is. So Sam Ethinger, the University of Texas product, he's a starting quarterback, and his arm is not that good. I mean, he's a running guy. His arm is average, maybe at best.
Yeah, I think the whole Colts offense is, I don't want to say they're downgraded from Matt Ryan because Matt Ryan wasn't even playing well, but they're downgraded from what you expected all the way.
Very well.
We have Ray 0134. Okay, I'm stacked at running back. I have Kenny Walker, Dalvin Cook, and Aaron Jones. Yes, you are stacked at running back.
I love Aaron Jones this week if you guys play daily fantasy, but keep going.
Yep, I got offered Josh Allen, the Cowboys defense, and Darren Waller for Lamar and Kenny Walker.
Well, Lamar, who
I say, listen, you guys can hear I'm a big Kenny Walker fan at this point, so I'm not doing that deal myself. I understand how tempting it is, but what about you, Ross?
Ooh, so I would want to have Josh Allen on my team instead of Lamar Jackson. If I probably would be tempted to do that because I feel Josh Allen is just more consistent than Lamar Jackson in fantasy. Nothing against Lamar Jackson. He's a great player, but the first thing in Baltimore is they run the ball. They really do. It's not about passing the ball. In Buffalo, it's about passing the ball. I'd rather have Josh Allen. I think if you're making a playoff run, if you're in the playoffs, starting Josh Allen, I think is a huge advantage over Lamar Jackson.
I think it's true. The only thing I'll say is, okay, so Ray says, I don't really have a solid defense, and Josh Allen.
Defense doesn't mean anything.
I agree.
I waive my defense every week, and I still win.
And you know what? You're going to think you have the best defense, and then they'll be terrible that week. Don't worry about defense. But he says, I don't really have a solid defense, and Josh Allen is more consistent. It all depends on if you think Walker would be better than Aaron Jones rest of season. And I think that he's going to be. What I would say is you can still make this deal, but I think you can push for more because Darren Waller's, he's hurt. I think you can just get more for this.
I'm not a big Darren Waller guy just because the Raiders, scored 0 points against the Saints last week.
That was not good.
Getting worse every week.
Not good.
But Waller has been hurt all year. He's not been consistent. He's not the tier tight end we all thought he was. But Josh Allen, having him during the playoffs, especially in fantasy, is a huge advantage. You got to trust me on this. He's going to have some huge games where he's going to throw the ball like 40 times.
All right, Ross. Just Bob says K9 is a dog. Now, translate for me. Who is K9? Do you know?
Who let the dogs out? Who? I have no idea.
You have no idea? Wait, let's see if we can scroll back and see who we were. Oh, maybe you're talking about Kenny Walker? Is that K9? Does he have that nickname? Anyways, I know when Just Bob says he's a dog, he means business. He means it's good. Just Bob says Cam is coming back to LA. That is true. Cam Akers, he was not dealt in the trade deadline. It's funny how quickly they make up when they did not get C-Mac. I think
but he doesn't want to play here. He made it very clear that he doesn't want to be in a Ram uniform.
Yeah, but how many times have you seen it in sports where people are like, "Oh, I don't want to be here," and then they're like, "Fine."
And Cam Akers he was way overrated. I said this before the draft. Yeah. I was telling people like this guy had a few good games. Don't trust Cam Akers. Don't draft him in the first 8 rounds. And what do people do? They draft him in the first 8 rounds.
The Rams offense has just been terrible.
Oh, I'm so excited for the Rams Tampa Bay game. Not this weekend. It's going to be great.
It's another Broncos game.
If you bet the under on that game, that's a great bet. Keep going.
Yeah, even if the under is 0.
It's 42.
Don't do that. 42. Going. Okay. Trey S says also full PPR, start 1. AJ Dillon, Kyle Pitts, or Devontae Smith?
That's the easiest question I've ever seen in my life.
I think this one's very easy also. Let's make sure we have the right answer. It's Devontae Smith.
Yeah, I'm doing the Heisman post for you.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, I did the Heisman post.
Devontae Smith, I mean, some people have been sleeping on Devontae Smith for whatever reason because he was such a highly touted receiver and he just hadn't broken out. But if you look at it, he's broken out this year. I mean,
so Hurts already said, because they kind of didn't use him that much last week, he said this week he's going to be used Devontae Smith a lot more. Pitts has been one of the biggest disappointments in fantasy football, hands down. And AJ Dillon gets the ball 10 times a game, and that's it. I mean, so it's an easy question.
Okay, now the next one it kind of relates because Devontae is in there. Yabsira says start Palmer, Devontae, or Rondale this week. So
you go first, and I'll give you my opinion.
I mean, I start Devontae for sure. Out of those, if I have to just start one, that's my pick.
See, I would go. The only reason I'm doing this is because they're playing Atlanta, and their two best receivers are not playing. And I think Herbert's going to have 500 yards against Atlanta. I mean, he's going to be tearing it up, and Palmer and Carter's going to be, and Everett's going to be getting the ball a lot. So I'll spin the wheel on Palmer. How about that?
Okay, and the reason I go Devontae is I don't like to have the regret the next day of being like I could have played Devontae Smith and I played Palmer because he was the hot play. When that happens, the ball could get spread out.
That's fine. I'm just saying that Atlanta's DBs.
Oh no, I respect both opinions.
You don't understand how bad these guys are. I mean, every week they get burned. I mean, I mean, every week people like who they play last week. So the guy who they played had 350 yards. I mean, it was like easily. I mean, It was like every week they get burned.
James Mendez says, so I lost Brandon Cooks tonight. I already lost Mike Williams. I'm down to Claypool, Palmer, and Waller. Tight end is not mandatory. I need to pick two. Who do I go with? Thanks, guys. Ross, pick two.
Pick two.
Out of Claypool,
Palmer, I wouldn't. Claypool's not going to be getting the ball much in Chicago. He's going to use the offense. He's not going to be a big play there. If Waller is healthy, it'd be Waller and Palmer. So there you go.
Yeah, but if he's not, then I guess you go Claypool and Palmer.
I guess you have no choice.
Palmer is the obvious one in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you also could potentially make
Palmer. If you guys play daily fantasy at all, pick Palmer up. Trust me.
Okay, Cajunomics says I'm considering picking up Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson, who we've actually interviewed.
So Deshaun Jackson, this is. Let me just tell you what's going to happen with your Deshaun Jackson pickup. I'll just tell you. Okay, I'll tell you I can see the future. I should wear like a turban.
I also see the future. Let's see if we have the same idea.
So you'll have Deshaun Jackson on your bench. And then all of a sudden, he has one big catch, one big game for 80 yards and a touchdown, let's say, right? And the following week, you start him thinking, okay, I'm gonna get the Deshaun Jackson what I deserve, and he puts up a 0. And that's what's going to happen with Deshaun Jackson. It's a waste of space on your roster. Don't pick him up. Leave him where he is. Let some other sucker pick him up. He's never going to start on your team. When he does, I guarantee you, he'll get under 0. He'll probably get under 1 point. He'll get 0 for you.
I totally agree. The only thing I'll add is that I think, and I'm not wishing this on him. I'm just saying I think this is the kind of thing that happens when players are in not the greatest headspace. They're likely to pull a hamstring. I feel that.
And he plays in Baltimore. And what did I tell you about Baltimore?
That's the other thing. Yeah.
They'd love to run the football. They like to run the football. So there you go.
Now, Cajunomics said, not so sure about that. I don't know if that was in relation to a comment we were making before or about his own pickup of Deshaun Jackson. I think it sounds like we're all in agreement not to do that. But let's talk about who else you can pick up. But I think he's not the play. He doesn't have huge upside anyway. Okay, Randy Miller says, got offered Kamara and Lockett for Mixon and Etienne. My team after the trade would be Burrow, Kamara, Ken Walker, Evans, that's Mike Evans, T. Higgins, Waller, and then Lockett or DJ Moore at the flex. First of all, I'd be playing DJ Moore all the time right now. He's completely exploding. But
yeah, unless he takes off his helmet and has a penalty and then he costs you the game. But we'll talk about that later.
So Kamara and Lockett for Mixon and Etienne. Ross, what do you think?
I love Kamara. I love Etienne. So Mixon is not really producing much because Burrow's just passing the ball like a maniac. Lockett, I believe he's healthy. He wasn't healthy last week.
I mean, the only thing I'll say here is it looks like you've got more
Okay,
receiver depth.
this is what I'm going to tell you guys, and I don't want to bring Brad Luck to any player, but ETN is getting the ball a lot, and he's getting hit a lot, and I don't want to say it, but I think he's going to get hurt in the next couple of weeks. I don't want that to happen. So I rather have Kamara. I think Kamara is more valuable, especially when the season gets further ahead. I think he gets more juice and he gets better and better and better, and he'll have bigger games. I rather have Kamara in that deal. That's me.
By the way, K9 is not Kevin Walker. Kenneth Walker. There we go. K9 is Kenneth Walker,
the third.
Okay, K9
State University.
It's interesting that I somehow had not come across that nickname. I'm too busy looking at the numbers, I guess.
Oh, that's right. He's number 9. There you go.
Okay, so now we're never going to forget that. Thank you for that. Okay, Yabsira says, also, should I start Kasey or Evan Ingram? Is it a
okay?
Is it a
let
one?
Me just tell you something. Anytime you have Kasey, you start him.
Yes, you never don't start him. I don't care what the matchup is, and especially not for
Kasey. Is
I mean, if you're saying should I start Kasey or Stephon Diggs, that's a different question. All right.
Okay.
Bambo, good to see you again. Guys, just got off of this nuisance to my health and team. JT traded JT and Deion Jackson and Juju for Dameon Pierce, Singletary, and Curtis Samuel. Thoughts? Interesting. Okay, Ross, what do you think?
So you traded Jonathan Taylor, first round pick. It was number 1 in a lot of leagues. Deion Jackson, who
he must have picked him.
Is his handcuff. I mean, got him off waivers, obviously. And Juju, who had a great game 2 weeks ago. But again, Kansas City does not have a number 1 receiver there. For Dameon Pierce, who plays on a bad team but does get the ball. Singletary, who I don't love just because Buffalo likes to throw the ball. And Curtis Samuel, who plays for the Washington Commanders.
You've been excited about
I'm just saying this. I kind of like the Dameon Pierce, Singletary, and Curtis Samuel pick. I kind of like that side a little better.
I do too, actually. I mean, but it's close, and you have to be aware or ready for potential regret, because if JT explodes, it's going to hurt.
I think Curtis Samuel, he got 4 handoffs last week, and he's been a lot of targets, so he could be like the dark horse in that thing. Like, oh, he was just a throwing. He's not a throwing. Curtis Samuel is good in fantasy. He's going to just get better, and I love how the Commanders are actually throwing the ball a lot more now with Taylor Heineke. So I don't know. I kind of like that deal.
I would say the interesting thing is I think the safer side is Pierce, Singletary, and Curtis Samuel, ironically.
Yeah.
And I think the upside play is JT and Deion Jackson and Juju.
I guess.
So, and you could go in either direction.
Either way, if it's a redraft league, obviously this is redraft. I think if we tallied all the points at the end of the season, I think you came across ahead.
Yeah, I think if it's keeper or dynasty, we all know it.
Yeah, we all
don't pull that trigger.
Yeah.
Randy Miller says, report Texans weren't asking for a second, fourth, and consume the $18 million on Brandon Cook's contract. Why wasn't he dealt? Ross, any thoughts?
Yeah, again, it's the mentality that some of these GMs have in the NFL football. They're afraid to make a move, and especially with one of their stars like Cooks, like he's their star receiver. So for some reason, the Jets were opposite. The Jets went out and they got somebody as soon as Hall went down, they went out and got
James Robinson.
Yeah, they got Robinson like that day. So commend that guy. But some GMs, Randy, are just afraid to make a move, and I think that's what happened in Texas.
So wait, I just want to make sure I understand the question. It sounds like what Randy's saying is the Texans were asking for a second, fourth, and consume the $18 million on the Brandon Cooks contract. I mean, first of all, there are 2 problems here. The second, would you deal a second round pick for Brandon Cooks at this point? If I'm a GM, I'm not likely to do that, and especially not if I'm going to have to eat the $18 million contract. That's going to clog up the whole contract pool for myself. So I'm assuming that's why. Sometimes teams back themselves in a corner with these demands. So why wasn't he dealt?
Just again, if you're a team that needs a receiver and you have room in your cap for $18 million and you can make a playoff run with Cooks as your receiver, maybe. But I just don't know what team that would fit, because it'd have to be a playoff team that has a chance to be in the playoffs to make a run that need a number 1 receiver.
Well, there was talk that he was going to go to the Rams.
The Rams are not making a playoff.
But I don't see why they would. I mean, they have Van Jefferson coming back. They're probably going to bring in Odell Beckham.
Yeah, Odell Beckham.
I don't see why they would do that.
Odell Beckham's on vacation and
I mean,
in a pool.
why would you give up a second round or fourth rounders, just icing on the cake, but
It's
and
too
an
much.
$18 million
No one's going to
contract
do that deal
when you can just sign Odell Beckham? All right. Chris Genova says, guy in my league has Chase, just lost MT, has DPJ as his next best receiver. That's Donovan Peoples-Jones. Thinking about going for him. I got DJ Moore, Thielen, and Palmer. Waddle, my wide receiver one and untouchable at the moment. I agree.
So MT is Michael Thomas, so everybody knows.
Yeah. Should I package 2 wide receivers? Ross, what do you think?
I got DJ Moore.
He's talking about going after Chase.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So I got Chase is not coming back. Well, they have a bye week next week, so you'll miss 2 games out of Chase probably. Okay, so let's just put that. But yes, I would go after Chase. I mean, right now Palmer's value is high just because he's the number 1 or 2 receiver in LA. DJ Moore, Adam Thielen could be my dad. He's that old. I mean, the guy's old. So I don't have any respect for Adam Thielen, even though I does have good hands, but he's not consistent enough. But yes, I would try to go after Chase. I think that's a good. Now you're thinking, and hopefully you don't have to worry about that much for a couple weeks. Hopefully you have
okay,
at least
but I think part
record.
of the question here, Ross, is should he package 2 of his wide receivers that he has? Now Waddle, obviously not, but I think he's talking about DJ Moore with one of these guys.
I would package DJ Moore and Adam Thielen and see what happens.
Listen, I would only do that if I had a really strong record right now. I understand wanting Chase, but the fact is DJ Moore is playing very well right now. If you have a suspect record, you probably can't take that chance. To me, it's all about the record right there.
Fine. Go after Chase.
All right. Cajunomics says Devontae Smith is number 3 in the NFL in getting separation against man coverage. He's really coming around. I mean,
no, it's up and down with him. If hopefully Hurts can get him the ball tonight. That's what we're hoping for.
Okay. Now, Cajunomics said true. I think that was about the Deshaun Jackson discussion, but this is one of the joys of chats coming up in the order they're coming out. He could have been saying true to anything, and I appreciate that. I just love that it's true. Okay, Zachary Hughes says, the Cup Allen owner in my league has 0 running backs. Should I trade Henry for either of them? I'd have to turn around and deal Joe Burrow for another running back. 12-man PPR. Okay, Ross, weigh in on this. I have particular thoughts, but I'm going to hold off on it.
I love it. Should I trade Henry for either of them? So his other quarterback is Joe Burrow, correct?
Yeah.
No, I would keep Joe Burrow as my starting quarterback, obviously. You don't need Allen.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
And Coop is getting hurt. I mean, he's not 100%. He twisted his ankle. I rather have Derrick Henry. That's me.
So would
Tennessee is just going to be running the ball, especially with their rookie quarterback playing. Obviously, Malik Willis is their starting quarterback right now over Tannehill because Tannehill's hurt. I don't know how bad, but he's probably won't play this week either. I'd rather have Derrick Henry. I think he's a surefire every week.
So I totally agree. Here's the other reason I wouldn't do the deal. If you're doing the deal dependent on another deal, then you're backing yourself into a corner. You don't, because who knows what you're going to get.
You got Joe freaking Burrow.
Well, that's
Burrow.
That by itself is a good argument for not doing it. I mean, I'd honestly rather go to that guy. Listen, how about this, Ross? Would you trade Henry and Burrow for Allen and Kupp? Would you do that?
That's an interesting trade.
I would do that.
Henry and Burrow for Allen, and I probably would do that. Yes.
Yeah. See, I think that's the way to go, because that way you get the quarterback swap right in there, baked in. You don't have to go get a second deal, and yet you're getting better value. That's what I would go for. Okay. Jace Bodwin says, should I accept the trade of Olave and K9, who of course we should have known?
Kenneth Walker the third.
Jace is sending Olave and K9 for Mike Williams, Claypool, and Mixon. 10-man PPR. I say no. I think Mixon, Mike Williams is hurt.
Let me just Mixon, who I love Joe Mixon. I love him as a player, as a fantasy player. I don't love him. The Bengals are not running the ball well. They do throw the ball, but Perline is one of their guys. They throw the ball. Who's the other running back? Claypool, it's going to take Claypool a while to get used to the Bears offense. I'd like him as the number 1 receiver someday, not right now. And Williams is out for 4 weeks. Is that correct? Dr. Dan Ratner? Is it 4
Yeah,
weeks?
at least.
I mean, he's hurt.
It could go on.
So no, I Kenneth Walker is worth a lot right now. So
And really, Olave has been great. If you have Olave,
Olave,
and
I'd
K9,
rather have Olave than Claypool or Williams right now, and I'd rather have Kenneth Walker than Mixon. So
yeah,
no,
I mean,
it's horrible.
you can always look at your league and see if there's some way, or the teams, and see if there's some way to beef up what you'd be getting back. But I don't like that deal at all for you. As long as I understand correctly that you'd be sending Olave and Walker. We don't want that side of the deal as far as I'm concerned. Okay. TS says Romeo Doubs or Devin Duvernay play Swift and Flex Williams. Big bye week, PPR.
Oh yeah, just so everybody knows, there's a bye week of 6 teams this week. I mean, there's a lot of people are missing key players. So
who are those teams?
When you have to
I know
start.
The Steelers are one of them. Who else?
Steelers, Cowboys. I mean, there's a laundry list of teams that Giants. It's a whole list of teams. But so Dobbs I'd rather start Romeo Dobbs. Who does Green Bay play this week, Dan? I forgot.
I will check it out. But
and then Baltimore plays Monday night against New Orleans, I believe, right?
Green Bay plays at Detroit.
So Detroit's defense is a joke. Probably the worst defense them and Atlanta are the two worst. I would start Romeo. He had a good touchdown catch last week. And again, I think I just feel that Aaron Rodgers is like really mad. And when he gets mad, you want to be on the receiving end because he'll be throwing the ball like a maniac. So Dobbs there. What do you think?
Well, so Baltimore's playing New Orleans, and did you hear about the injury to the wide receiver on Baltimore? Why am I blanking on his name?
Yes, on Bateman. He's out. He's right. On injury reserve. I saw that. No, he's out for the rest of the season.
He's out for the season, right? So Duvernay does have a bigger role, and I think this is part of why people are asking about Deshaun Jackson in the first place. Could be about that, but I still don't think
Baltimore,
Deshaun Jackson is play.
They like to run the ball in Baltimore, guys. They don't like to pass the ball that much. So
listen, I have to say, I mean, I wonder if you'll agree with this, Ross. To me, you can't trust almost any player on Baltimore except Lamar Jackson, and you can't even trust him that much. The Baltimore offense is just...
There's two guys, Jackson and Andrews. I trust those
Andrews,
two
guys.
Yes. That's it.
And Jackson, I trust at least to some degree.
And then, so I would start Dobbs, play Swift, and flex Williams. Which Williams are we talking about?
I assume that's Jamal Williams on Detroit. He's asking, I think, do I play both Swift and Williams? It's a big bye week. It's PPR.
Well, last week I think they both had touchdowns, right? I mean, yes, I think
I'm comfortable playing them both. I
don't think that's a bad play. I think it's like if you're starting like Dillon and Jones in Green Bay, it's like, or Chubb and Hunt, it's like the same thing. You're starting two guys that could both have great weeks. So it's really, and Green Bay's defense isn't that good. So I think that's a fine play. You'll be okay.
I also think that's proven to be true throughout this whole season. When Swift and Williams are both playing, they both do well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I would be confident going into that. And sure, your opponent has some missing pieces too, so don't feel bad.
Absolutely. Okay, TS then says, trade Josh Allen, Brandon Ayuk, Mike Williams for Diggs and D-Hop. I lost Chase and Williams
D-Hop.
for now.
Trade Josh Allen, so he's the main piece of that trade. Williams is hurt. I love Brandon Ayuk.
I mean, what's your quarter? Oh, he says my backup quarterback is Tua. Okay, so that's an important piece of information. So you're downgrading from Josh Allen to Tua, but you're getting Diggs and D-Hop. I like that deal.
DeAndre Hopkins. So I rather, yes, you think I'm crazy, but I would not mind having Tua as my starting quarterback and getting Diggs and D-Hop as my two receivers. You have a huge advantage against anybody you play.
I can't help myself though. When I see a deal like this, I always want to tweak it. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, if you lost Jamar Chase and Williams, and you're dealing Williams in this deal for Diggs and D-Hop, what if you deal Chase instead of Mike Williams and keep Josh Allen? Then maybe you can get, Diggs. You got to throw in something else because Chase is injured. But I would rather try to hold on to Josh Allen and get Diggs if he's somehow free.
Yeah, but I think the person he's trading with wants Josh. I think that's the main key he wants is Josh Allen.
Yeah, and listen, you got to trade from strength. You got Tua as your backup. I think it's a totally fine thing to do. But maybe you can get more. And if you include Chase instead of Williams, you could get a lot more. At the same time, keeping Tua and bringing in Diggs, D-Hop, and then having Chase come back, that's nasty. I'm all for it. I think that's a great idea.
I think it's fun to mix up teams, and I think that deal helps your team a lot. Obviously,
I agree. And also remember, it depends on your record at the time. You may need to shake it up now to get some wins. Cagenomics says keep Olave and Walker. That was the deal we were talking about before. Olave doesn't even have MT coming back now. Olave, I think, is going to be a target monster. And Just Bob agrees. Keep the two. Then Just Bob says likely will get used a lot this week, even if Andrew plays. What was that in reference to?
So
Ross?
likely is the backup tight end, the rookie tight end that plays for Baltimore, who had 70 yards and a touchdown last week for Baltimore.
Oh, okay. I was reading it as
so
likely
is. I agree. I had likely on my pickup list for tight ends this week. Just Bob. So I like this kid. He's a rookie. He's a big body. He can catch, and even with Andrews playing, I think likely will get the ball too. I think you're right. Good pickup.
All right, Cagenomics agrees with us. Take Diggs and D-Hop. I think, Stephon Diggs, he is just a machine these days. I mean,
Diggs, I think he's leading the NFL in receiving yards right now. I mean, he's just a machine, like you said. I mean, he's unbelievable.
He is. And how many touchdowns is it 7?
6 or 7?
It's 7. I mean, he's leading the league in yards. He's got 7 touchdowns, and meanwhile, he has Josh Allen throwing to him. So,
I mean, it's too bad. It's too bad you got to get rid of Allen. If you can have Allen and Diggs on the same team and have
that's what I was saying is let's find a way to do it. I don't like give almost anything you can to get Diggs and Allen.
I don't think.
But you're right. It's not likely to happen. I do have a guy in my keeper league who has Diggs and Allen, and he's just going to win the league without any problem.
CI Sports Cards. I'm a huge avid sports collector in cards, so you know.
I didn't know that. All right, we'll talk about it. CL Sports Cards says, should I trade Kenneth Walker for CD Lamb? My running backs are Eckler, JT, Etienne, and Walker. So very strong running backs. My receivers are Higgins, DJ Moore, Sutton, Joshua Palmer, Pickens, Garrett Wilson.
Yes, you should do that deal. Sutton's a huge disappointment. He's almost waiver wire worthy right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense to deal from strength and deal a running back.
Palmer could just be a 2-week wonder because as soon as they get healthy, he won't be worth anything. And Pickens it's great for dynasty, but not for this year. I think it's going to take him a year to become a great receiver.
Let me ask you this, though, Ross. Of those running backs, is there someone you'd rather trade for that? I mean, I doubt you can get CeeDee Lamb for JT at this moment, but I'd consider it.
On all seriousness, you probably think I'm crazy. I'd rather trade JT I'd rather keep Kenneth Walker than.
No, that's what I'm saying.
I'd rather trade JT.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I mean, a lot of times people
see if you can trade JT instead of Kenneth Walker. Some people have illusions that he's still a number 1 pick in the draft, which he's not. So
look, Cagenomics this is a reality that actually happened. I have Walker and traded JT for Lamb. So that's kind of what we're recommending here. I think at this point, I'd much rather have Kenneth Walker than JT. I do think it makes sense to deal from strength and get a wide receiver for those running backs. But I'm telling you, I'm really high on Ken Walker.
I mean, Eckler this week against Lane is going to have a monster game. So you have a winner there. Travis Etienne, I love. I think he's the real deal. The competition's gone now. It's his job. And JT, he hasn't done anything this year. I mean, I think this year I see him. In all seriousness, if Indianapolis is out of the playoffs, he'll probably sit the rest of the year. I don't see him coming back and playing.
Yep.
So,
all right, Ross, we've got a little extra time here. We've got a pause in the questions at the moment. So I wanted to ask you, were there any major stories this week that we didn't talk about yet? A lot of times when we talk trade, all of the stories tend to come out, but I still think it was a big trade deadline. Did we miss anything in terms of the trades that happened?
Well, TJ Hawkinson went to Minnesota. Your buddy Irv Smith Jr. is on the IR, so they picked up Hawkinson, which I think is a great pickup for them. Cousins is going to have a new target now with Justin Jefferson, Thielen and Hawkinson now. I mean, that's a great pickup for Minnesota. Minnesota, I think they're like 7 or 6-1. I mean, they're in first place in the division. No one's talking about them at all. I mean,
they could make a deep playoff run.
But I mean, Minnesota is only lost 1 game this year, and they have a good team. It's like a joke. So I think getting Hawkinson really, really helped them a lot. I mean, anything else? I mean, Chase Edmonds going to Denver, making that a disaster now in fantasy football for the running backs in Denver with Gordon and with Murray. Now they have Chase Edmonds. I mean, the story is basically don't pick up any Denver running backs. You don't know who's going to get the ball. It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
And they're not very good running the ball anyway.
Well, and listen, this is the time of year when people are really asking a lot of questions about this because there's so many buys. We didn't mention Cleveland's on a buy. By the way, I searched to see is Cleveland on a buy, and the weirdest thing showed up. Cleveland is on a buy, and also there is a wide receiver on Denver named Tyree Cleveland who's also on buy. Everyone, all Clevelanders on buy, even Tyree Cleveland. Very strange.
There's a lot of buys. There's 6 teams on buys, so everybody knows. So Ross, you'll be using some of the guys that are on your bench usually to start, which is kind of everybody is going through the same thing. So don't think you're the only team.
Okay, Just Bob says, okay, I have to go. Awesome show, guys. Take care, everyone. Great to see you, Just Bob. We will see you next week.
See you next week, Just Bob.
Okay,
go Dolphins.
Now I have a question. James Conner, how do we value him going forward? What's happening with him?
It's like he practices and his ribs hurt. I mean, he's week to week. I mean, we'll find out. The good thing about Arizona is they're transparent. They'll let you know on Friday if he's playing or not. I mean, they're not like San Francisco who like hides information. They don't hide any information in Arizona. So we'll find out if Eno Benjamin's going to be the starting running back or James Conner. I don't know. I mean, he has an injury. He hasn't played in 3 weeks.
Let me ask about the flex value of Eno Benjamin at this point. Even if Conner plays, has he carved out more of a role?
I mean, I just think the starting running back in Arizona gets a majority of the work.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean,
you got to know your system.
And again, Murray, he runs the ball a lot, so he's going to take away handoffs from both those guys.
Okay, we've got a question from DeGoat already. Duvernay or Juju?
Juju, he had a great game. He had a great game a couple weeks ago. Juju, just because Kansas City is their number one thing is throwing the ball, then they run. So it's two different. That's a good lesson. 2 different teams, 2 different scripts. One team likes to throw the ball, Kansas City. The other one likes to run the ball, Baltimore. So you go with the team that likes to throw the ball. You go with Juju.
Well, and here's the other thing. When I'm comparing 2 players, sometimes what I'm thinking about is which is the bigger upside play and which one's safe. This isn't as clear to me, but Juju is clearly the bigger upside play as far as I'm concerned. So I think when all things are being equal, I'm going to go with the bigger upside. If you were asking Juju or, some receiver who's safely going to get you 60 yards, and let's say you're playing a team that isn't very good, maybe you play conservative, but I don't think Duvernay is that guy.
I don't think so either. You're 100% right.
All right, Ross, are there guys who are on buy right now that you'd be looking to target in a trade? Because their value's down this week right now, and maybe you're 7-1 and you can afford to go ahead and scoop some of these guys up. If that's the case, who would you be going after?
I mean, I said it early in the show, CeeDee Lamb for Dallas, who's not been having a huge year yet. But I think with Dak now, like, in the mix and ready to roll, I know he was hurt, he's back, but CeeDee Lamb right now, if you guys can make offers to try to get him on your team right now, is a good time to do it, because I think he's going to have a great second half of the year. Remember, we're halfway through the season. I mean, it's week 9 and there's 17 weeks, so we're almost done with football.
Yeah, well, actually, it is getting close.
But fantasy football, we start playoffs and the rosters.
Well, that's the thing, is a lot of teams are going to drop out around week 12.
Yeah,
or 13.
Lock in some leagues. I know that, and and you got to make sure your team has the right players on the bench, because some leagues you can't even pick up during the lock.
Yeah, and by the way, when that starts to happen, we're still going to be doing basketball and even hockey, so you can ask us lots of questions.
Yeah.
We can talk about whether I'm going to three-peat in hockey. I don't know, Ross. We'll see. There are guys that are on buy, though, that maybe are worth scooping up. Like, is Daniel Jones worth scooping up as a backup QB? I know you don't want him as your starter, but
it's funny you said that. In one of my leagues, I have Burrow, so I needed a quarterback not for this week, the next week.
Right.
So I picked up Jones this week just in case.
See, that's the thing. You got to look ahead.
Yeah. So I did look ahead on that league, and I did pick up Jones for the following week. But yeah, Daniel Jones, I forgot who they play, but they have like an easy game. It's going to be a field day for him, like when he comes back for 2 weeks. He has 2 weeks to prepare also. But Daniel Jones is a great example. Yes, certain players like him, if they have 2 weeks to prepare for a certain team, it means a lot. I agree 100%.
Okay, 2 more comments before we go. DeGoat already says appreciated. If Andrews is out, though, might make it hard not to go Duvernay over Juju. I actually agree with that. If Andrews is out, I probably would play Duvernay, especially if I just wanted a safe play. If I wanted the upside play at that point, Duvernay, it's become a lot more even, and I feel much more comfortable with it. If
I
Andrews
agree
is
with
out,
you. And
I go Duvernay.
If Andrews is out, pick up Likely is the backup tight end for
Baltimore. But if you're talking Duvernay or Juju in that situation, I do go Duvernay there. Okay, Mr. Josh will finish up on this. Should I start DeAndre Carter or
Romeo
Doubs?
Again, I love the Carter and Palmer combination this week. I would start Carter. That's me. Dan, who do you like?
I would go DeAndre Carter. I think between the two, the Packers are so hit or miss with these wide receivers. I just think go for the guy who has the clear, bigger role, and the matchup really does matter sometimes. And in this case, I think it does. All right, DeGoat already says, thanks, guys. Good to see you here. Good to see you all here. Thanks so much for joining us. Keep those questions coming. We're going to be here every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. Again, we will talk other sports. Right now, we're in the heart of football season, so we just talk football.
Football's
pretty
king.
Much all the time.
Yep.
Football is king in fantasy. So let's keep those questions coming.
So before we go, the World Series is on tonight. Philadelphia versus Houston. And Thursday night, it's the Thursday night game is Philadelphia versus Houston. Don't you think it's ironic?
That's crazy.
That's weird stuff. Weird and
that
crazy.
Is weird, wild stuff. Meanwhile, there was a no-hitter in the World Series.
No-hitter. I guess we can call it that.
A combined no-hitter. This drives me crazy. I'm just like, just throw the guys. If they're throwing a no-hitter, let him continue. That's
not in a 7-game series where he's already thrown 96 pitches. I think they did the right
if it's a question of winning the game, I understand it.
No, but you want this guy to pitch. We're talking baseball, but you want this guy to pitch maybe game 7. Don't throw his arm out.
You're right. If it's a question of the series, I certainly understand that.
If it was 1-0, yes, but it was like 5-0. I mean, you take the guy out.
Exactly. Cajunomics says, thanks, y'all. All right, guys. It's been a pleasure. Looking forward to next week. We will see you soon. Thanks for watching.